Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Hot Takes Goodman and Hurdle. Special guest next 3 days. My man, Troy Renck from the Denver Post. How are you, Troy?
Doing fantastic, Eric. How are you, my friend?
Doing well. Certainly have a lot to talk about, even though we are in theory the dead season. So it's always nice that when Patrick Saunders finally nails down an interview with the Montforts, we have a chance to talk about that. And the Nuggets today are finally having a press conference to make some introductions to their front office. So I suppose there's always something going on, right?
Yeah, I mean, the thing about sports in this market, it's the dead period is a little bit of a fallacy because there's always news. It just feels different when they're not playing games. And the Rockies are playing games, but obviously they're not playing meaningful games. So, but we're not that far from Broncos training camp. It's only about 2.5. It only feels like about 3 weeks before the rookies report. So we're not that far out.
But who's counting? With that, I want to tell you about Roller Auction. It's the best way to get what you want at the price you want. They've been the leader in Colorado auctions for over 45 years. Tomorrow, the city of Aurora is having an impounded vehicles auction featuring trucks, cars, SUVs, 4x4s, trailers, and more. Online bidding has started at rollerauction.com. If you want to learn about upcoming auctions, go to rollerauction.com as well. Get what you want at the price you want today at Roller Auction. Time now for the lead.
The lead is presented by Smokin' Dave's Barbecue. It is not just the best barbecue in town, it is one of the best restaurants in town. You can find Smokin' Dave's Barbecue off 36th and Pecos.
Later today at Ball Arena to make it official, Ben Tenzer, Executive Vice President of Basketball Operations. John Wallace comes from the Minnesota Timberwolves under the Tim Connolly tree to take over as Executive Vice President of Player Personnel. On the surface, Troy, how much sense does it make to hire a pair of guys who have plenty of front office experience, but have never had this type of responsibility, and then throw in the additive responsibility of being the stewards of the Jokic era?
It's a risk for sure. I think if most teams had done this, we'd completely pan the move. Like, Eric, what are they doing? As you've noted on social media, and I've talked to people about, they've done this before with Mark Warkentine, I think I'm pronouncing it right, and
yes.
Rex Chapman, and through 2006 through 2010. It's clearly an arrangement Stan Kroenke and now Josh Kroenke are comfortable with. Two guys reporting, in this case, to Josh Kroenke. I'm not crazy about it, but if they're able to work together, and Wallace is, what I'm being told, is kind of the player's guy, the guy who keeps relationships, who understands that side of it, and Tenzer's the money, salary cap. This is how this trade works if we put it into the machine. In theory, it could work. It's just, again, the stakes are so high because of Jokic's prime when you're trying to figure out, can these guys do it? They've had experience with guys with no experience doing great in this role. So unlike other teams in this market, say the Rockies, I will give the Nuggets the benefit of the doubt on this, but the pressure's on. The stakes are high. The pressure's on. And none of us want to hear, well, he'd never done this before, so there's a learning curve. No. You ditched the learning curve when you said at multiple press conferences, Josh, that everything is motivated to win around Jokic. This isn't a rebuilding plan. You're not in transition. So these two guys have got to figure it out together, and they got to figure it out quickly.
Every head coach, every executive has had a first job in which they haven't had any experience. They have experience doing other things, but eventually on your first job, that is going to be your experience. But I want to go back to a couple of things quickly on things that I have been saying on social media. Josh Kroenke hasn't put a little bit of equity in the bank when it comes to hiring GMs. He has loaded up the bank with equity. Remember, he's the guy who hired a relative unknown in Masai Ujiri. Masai Ujiri did pretty well. By all accounts, I would easily call him a top 10 GM in the business, if not even higher than top 10, maybe even top 5. He hired Tim Connolly. Tim Connolly had no GM experience either. Worked out pretty well. He also hired Calvin Booth. Now, there are two sides to Calvin Booth, Troy. The first side is it's kind of like John Elway when he got Peyton Manning. We know what happened when they got Peyton Manning and they built a Super Bowl team. We understand that. It's what had to happen after Manning retired. That's a whole different chapter for John Elway. It's the same thing for Calvin Booth. It's when he started acquiring Bruce Brown and KCP, and I'll say this forever. And if somebody wants to for lack of a better phrase, fight me on this. I'll have this conversation. The Nuggets do not win a championship without KCP and Bruce Brown, period. Period. They needed A, D, and 3 on that roster, and they got 2. Once those 2 guys left, it's fair to question Calvin Booth's draft. Now, going back to something that you said a few minutes ago, the 3-headed monster. I don't know what you were covering back when the 3-headed monster was going strong. Was it the Broncos or the Rockies?
The Rockies.
Okay. I can tell you plenty about the 3-headed monster. The 3-headed monster was Mark Warkentine, interesting cat, came from the Jerry Tarkanian school of recruiting, and then had his fingerprints all over as the assistant general manager of the Trailblazers. He helped build the Jailblazers. And then the Nuggets became the Thuggets under his stewardship. That was your director of basketball operations. And oh, by the way, what I just said, God rest his soul, exactly what I just said, he threatened to sue me in court for saying again, which I just said again. He called me when I did a commentary about this on Fox 31, and he said to me, if you ever say that shit again, quote, I'll fucking sue your ass. Well, he's no longer around. God rest his soul. I just said it again. That's his background. Tarkanian, Jailblazers, Thuggets. Then throw in Rex Chapman, director of player personnel, vice president of the exact same setup we have here currently. Rex Chapman didn't have a big personality, but he certainly had a strong enough personality. Then throw in Brett Barrup, who everybody loved. Everybody wanted to have a drink with this guy. He was one of Stan's closest friends, closest advisors, and that 3-headed monster built a team of misfit toys. They brought in tons of talent, but they didn't bring in team guys, role guys, guys who were willing to play complementary roles. Marcus Camby was not going to do that. Kenyon Martin was not going to do that. I could tell you all kinds of stories about these guys, but I don't want to pull up the rug and let everybody see what was going on back then. The point is, it wasn't easy. In this particular case, I think it is different. You have 2 guys, from what I understand, are incredibly smart, incredibly likable, and Josh Kroenke's running the show this time. Stan was hands off with a 3-headed monster. This has a much better chance of working.
Yeah, Josh has admitted that the one place he failed with this last pairing of Calvin Booth and Michael Malone was not recognizing earlier, Eric, that it was going sideways and just how toxic it had become. You know, at some point, Malone becomes so paranoid he can't really function and enjoy the job, and then Booth then kind of buys into that, feeling like everything Michael Malone does during the game is somehow a slight to his authority. And Josh Kroenke blames himself for not recognizing this more. You know, again, my issue with this has been very simple. I respect Josh Kroenke and the work the Kroenke family has done to make the Nuggets relevant and make them a champion. I feel like Josh Kroenke's too close to the team to be objective. And when they talk about running it back and they talk about these structures, it feels like you're doing it to benefit relationships and the closeness. And in sports, in especially the Western Conference right now, sentimentality doesn't seem to be the best course of action for me, that you've got to make some tough decisions, whether that's how your GM operates, whether that's how your coach operates, or whether or not you trade Michael Porter Jr. So there's at least a glimmer of hope here that, you know, ESPN reported that the Nuggets were on the fringes of the Kevin Durant thing, that they had interest. And that at least it tells me they're exploring the idea of changing this roster, because I've said it and will continue to say it. If their plan is to run it back completely, they're not good enough. And for everyone, Eric, that tells you they took the Oklahoma City Thunder to 7 games, yes, they did. I covered every one of those games. The problem is they had to win 8 more games after that, Eric. They weren't going to win 8 more games after that, as comprised with one bench player they trusted in Russell Westbrook, who was spiraling at the end of the playoffs.
I have heard the argument, and I have made the argument, hey, Nuggets took these guys into the 3rd and 4th quarter with leads, but just couldn't close it out, right? The argument is, if they can do that with Michael Porter Jr. playing as half of a player, Westbrook being the only real guy off the bench, you went to 7 games with Oklahoma City with 5.5 players. Let's just call the math what it is. They had 5, and then in the very, very end, they were down another half player with Aaron Gordon, yet still pushed it to 7 games. But let's not forget either, they also had a pair of last-second shots that went in. What if those don't? Because we could play the what-if game all day, but you can play it on both sides. What if they don't get those last-second shots to win? And the other side is, well, look what happened. They had the lead, and they just couldn't close it out. With that, you brought up Josh Kroenke being too close to the players, right? That's your belief. Is that correct?
That is my belief.
To me, that was the knock, and rightfully so, on Tim Conley. He was too close to his guys as well, specifically guys like Gary Harris and Will Barton, who should have been traded long before eventually they were cast off to other teams. That is a small concern that I do have if I have read and talked to people correctly about John Wallace. This guy is a people person, gets along really well with the players, and he comes from the Conley tree.
Right.
Then again, Tenzer comes from the Conley tree. Ironically, it would not surprise me. I don't know this is absolute fact, but Tenzer has been part of Basketball Without Borders for a long time. That's run by Masai Ujiri. These are all Nuggets ties together.
Yeah.
But here's the difference between Masai Ujiri and Tim Conley, and there are many differences. Masai Ujiri didn't give a flying F if he was your friend. He would trade you without even thinking about it. That's the way I think Calvin Booth was as well. Not to the same extent, but he had more of a he wanted to have a good relationship with the players, but he didn't mind trading them. Okay. Tim Conley was way too close. So if I have one concern from what I've read and people I've talked about Wallace is he might become too close to some of these guys and then may not want to trade them. With that, how does it make you feel that you have 2 guys off the Conley tree? Is that a positive or is that a negative?
I mean, for the most part, it's a positive. Again, it's just in pro sports, you've mentioned it, you need to fall in like with players. You can't fall in love with players.
Correct.
As soon as you fall in love with players, you overvalue them and you stop seeing their flaws. And you brought up Michael Porter Jr. Well, if he wasn't, playing with half a shoulder, Michael Porter Jr. is the same player whether he's hurt or injured. He's wildly inconsistent. He's going to give you 18, 19, some nights 30, some nights 6. That's whether he's healthy or not. That's just who Michael Porter Jr. is after 7 years in the league. We keep acting like he's a young player. He's going into his 8th season. So when it comes to Tim Conley tree, a lot of things Tim did with the Nuggets I really liked. He stayed way too loyal to Will Barton. Will Barton drove me crazy. There were times I would stop watching the Nuggets because I didn't want to watch Barton. This guy had no self-awareness, and everyone loved him. I get it. They're like, you don't understand. Everyone loves Will. It's like, I know, but if somebody gets theirs, he felt it was his obligation. I got to even the score and get mine. It's like, you're not competing against your own team, Will.
Right.
But in general, it's a good thing. I will point out one interesting fact that I read about Wallace that could benefit this relationship issue that we both have some underlying concerns. I'm not sitting here saying it's going to be a mistake, but it's something we all have to be aware of and mindful of because tight relationships with front offices and players typically don't lead to championships, especially at the stage the Nuggets are in. But keep an eye on this. It's something I read, and we'll see how this plays out. Apparently, Wallace has a really good relationship with Jamal Murray.
He does.
And that, to me, could be critical because, Halliburton is who Jamal Murray used to be, where we would say Jamal's going to show up in the big games, and he's Mr. Money, Mr. Clutch, Bubble Jamal. We haven't really seen that player, Eric, in 2 years. He had 2 moments 2 years ago against the Lakers. Then he was hurt and didn't play well. He's getting older. Is this the time that Jamal Murray shows up in camp and talks longer about the responsibility of being a max player than his future in the MMA? Last year when he talked about that, it was such a joke. It was insulting to the entire organization. Jamal, you got to be the guy, man. You can't use the first 6 weeks of the season to get in shape. Yeah. That affects your seed. They need him wire to wire to be a good player and then great in the playoffs. And so if somehow Wallace is able to push those buttons and Adelman is able to push those buttons, we'll look back on and say this made total sense. That in a way is almost like a free agent acquisition, is getting Murray to that next level. And it's not even the all-star conversation, which has always been part of it with Jamal. Can he be really good at the end of the season and stay healthy? He's starting to miss games like he's 34. And that, to me, is the key here. If Wallace can get the most out of Jamal, I will reserve judgment on a lot of how this structure is made.
Well, I'm not reserving any judgment. I'm going by the history I've seen. And the history that I've seen with Josh Kroenke, and he's always had a voice as well. He's not a meddling owner like a Dick Monfort. I mean, Josh did play. He wasn't some great player at Missouri, but he certainly has an understanding. And they built a pretty good roster over the years under his stewardship. And he understands the importance of, Jokic and, his legacy. The truth is, and I understand you need to build more pieces around Jokic, specifically on the bench, or at least develop the guys that they have. But the guy who's most responsible for Jokic's legacy is not Josh Kroenke. And it's not Wallace. And it's not anybody else but Jamal Murray. If Jamal Murray can play to his potential for a full season, stay in shape, and he's no longer a Batman. He's no longer a Robin anymore. He's not. Because I think you can make the argument, Aaron Gordon, you'd rather have him than Jamal Murray. We wouldn't have said that during the championship run. Jamal Murray is directly tied to how Nikola Jokic will be remembered nationally as a potential Mount Rushmore type player. Without him, Jokic cannot win titles.
Yeah, and it's not fair, but it's the reality of sports when you start ranking all-time greats. Yep. Jokic cannot be an all-time great with one championship. There's just no history of it. If you look at the all-time greats, name me one in like the top 10 that have one title. It doesn't exist.
Here, hold on. I'm going to take it a step further. I'll ask you. Give me one all-time great, one that didn't have an unbelievable sidekick, an unbelievable Robin to complement his Batman, unless you were referring to Wilt Chamberlain early on in his career before he joined the Lakers.
Yeah,
give me one. Jordan and Pippen. You had Bird, pick who you want. You can have Parrish, you could have McHale, you could have Dennis Johnson, you could have whoever you want to. Akeem Olajuwon, you got Drexler. When you go back the last 40, 50 years, there are outliers. And you can really probably start with the 2004 Pistons. Did they have any superstars on that team? Well, all these years later, now they have two Hall of Famers, in Chauncey Billups and Ben Wallace. But they weren't considered superstars like we look at superstars today. But almost every team that has won a title has a star, and then they have a solid number two Robin role. The Nuggets don't have that. And Murray is their only chance of getting a guy like that, and he's already on the roster.
Yeah, the only one I could think of, and it's not total apples to apples, is Kobe Bryant with Pau Gasol. No one saw Gasol as like a superstar player. In the end, it turned out he was. He was way better than we realized.
Troy, he was an 18-10 guy, which by today's standards is not considered great. Pau Gasol was a very, very good player. And honestly, I'm so glad you brought that up, because that's one of the examples that I bring to other people. Kobe Bryant only had Pau Gasol. Pau Gasol was a really good player, but he wasn't great like other tandems we've seen, like Julius Erving, Moses Malone,
right,
Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Magic Johnson, Kobe and Shaq. You look at other teams like that have won titles recently. What about Toronto? Kawhi and Siakam? Would that qualify?
Yeah, exactly. Well, there's my point. Why can't Jamal Murray be Jalen Williams? Like that's who I'm saying. Like, I'm not asking him to be a Hall of Famer. Why can't he be Jalen Williams to the SGA numbers? Like, he just has to be a little better. I mean, the first 6 weeks of the season, Jamal was averaging like 17 and a half, 18 points a game off to the worst shooting of his career from anywhere on the floor.
Right.
Then he picked it up, and then, he gets hurt again.
Right.
And that's the problem when you use part of the season to get in shape. It's the old climbing the mountain. You exert too much energy to get there, and then your body's not right for the stretch run. So if Wallace and Adelman and Kroenke can get in his ear, they're giving you max money, Jamal. We're not asking it like, hey, we need Deron Holmes to be the guy. Like, that's stupid. We don't know that. We have no idea. I watched him play in scrimmages before the OKC series. I don't know what he's going to be. It's totally fair to ask Jamal Murray as a max contract guy to show up motivated, in shape, and to put together his best season. Because if you look at these other teams, that's been my issue this whole offseason with the run it back crowd for the Nuggets. Do you think the Thunder are going to be better or worse next year? Do you think the Rockets are better or worse? The Western Conference, you just
but hold on.
assume all these other teams aren't getting better.
Troy, they're set up differently, okay?
No, but you're assuming as Nuggets fans, if you run it back, you're better. That's as if everyone else stays stagnant. They're not.
Well, but again, these other teams, the Nuggets were the first. Let's continue this after the break. Let's do this, because I will contend that the Nuggets were the first team that truly got punished by the new CBA. And they are in the middle of that right now. Look at Boston. They're having a fire sale. Like, Drew Holiday, what do you want from him? I'll give you a bag of hockey pucks for him, right?
But they make good trades. Last year, you traded 3 second-rounders to get rid of Reggie Jackson. They get a guy in Simmons who's going to be a great player for them. That's the difference.
Well,
we keep saying they're hamstrung because of these deals under a pre-existing CBA, so we just giving them an excuse. That can't be the case.
Well, I'll explain more after the break. How's it? You want to stick around? Are you tired of me yet?
I'm getting close.
Are you? Me too. I'm getting right on the edge, baby.
I'm right here. I'm right here.
Right.
Ever wondered where city and county fleet vehicles go when they retire? Now's your chance to find out and score big. Imagine driving away with a great deal on a reliable vehicle. For over 45 years, Roller Auction has been the trusted source for government fleet vehicles and equipment. Trucks, SUVs, sedans, and more, all selling to the highest bidder. Don't miss out. Visit roller.bid/hot takes to get auction updates today. Your next vehicle could be just a click away.
Everyone has their favorite sports bar. Mine, the Sportsbook Bar and Grill in Highlands Ranch in the DTC. Both locations are everything a sports bar should be. An upscale menu with 12 different burgers, outstanding wings, and my favorite, the Philly cheesesteak egg rolls. They've got every game on the NFL Sunday Ticket, MLB Extra Innings, NHL Center Ice, NBA League Pass, plus soccer, rugby, and UFC. Sportsbook is a hangout bar or great for private parties. The Sportsbook Bar and Grill in Highlands Ranch, the DTC, and coming soon to Parker. They are the sports bar.
Sasquatch and Wildcard Casinos in Blackhawk have another incredible promotion. They'll be giving away a pair of Spider Cruisers or over $15,000 in cash the weekend of July 18th, just in time for the Sturgis Bike Rally in South Dakota. That's right, your choice, cruisers or $15,000 in cash. Get finalist entries every 45 minutes from 10 a.m. to midnight during their daily cash drawing with a locked-up jackpot of $100 or more. Sasquatch and Wildcard Casinos, loose slots, great promotions, great food, and a family-owned casino that treats you like family.
Everyone has their favorite barbecue spot. Mine, Smokin' Dave's Barbecue and Brew. My favorites, slowly smoked ribs, smoked corned beef Reuben, smoked meatloaf with a portobello balsamic cream sauce. Don't forget about Smokin' Dave's 16-hour smoked brisket and pork with one of their 4 homemade barbecue sauces. Great sides, you bet. Barbecue beans made with pork and brisket and their southern corn bake. Man, you got to try it. Plus, they have amazing non-barbecue entrees on the menu. Go where I go, Smokin' Dave's Barbecue and Brew in North Denver.
Ferguson's Heating and Cooling is the best in Denver, and their customers agree. Ferguson's has 165 5-star Google reviews, and here's one from Betsy. Highly professional, prompt, and honest. I switched to Ferguson's when I became aware my former company was trying to sell me a whole new system I didn't need. Ferguson's is an honest, working, family-owned business that'll give you a fair price, the highest quality parts and equipment, and they always show up on time. You can trust the Ferguson family like you trust your own family. Go to fergusonsheatingandcooling.com.
Spice up your next night out at Nola Jane and Lodo. Authentic Cajun cuisine like andouille sausage gumbo with dirty rice, crawfish etouffee, as well as 6 different po' boys like soft-shell crab and shrimp. Come in before or after a game at Ball Arena. Host a party or party on their rooftop deck overlooking Market Street during happy hour from 11 a.m. to 5. Plus, Nola Jane caters, delivers, and the kitchen is open late night. Make Nola Jane your new favorite spot to eat, drink, and party like it's Mardi Gras.
Welcome back. Hot Takes. Goodman and Hurdle want to tell you a little bit more about one of my favorite restaurants in town, and that is Nola Jane down in Lodo. Are you a Cajun guy, Troy?
100%. Absolutely love it.
Okay, so I'm going to give you some things that you need. Do you like fish? I'll start with that.
I do.
Okay, I'm going to give you a dish that is one of the best, and I've traveled all over the world. I've been blessed. It's one of the best meals I've ever had in my lifetime. It is a blackened catfish over dirty rice, and you can put crawfish etouffee on top. And every time I think about that crawfish etouffee, you ever like something and you think about it, you're like, ooh, I would love some of that right now. That's what that crawfish etouffee is. They also have an amazing barbecue mac and cheese with shrimp, which is fantastic. The shrimp and grits with shrimp, obviously, is absolutely awesome. They have 6 different po' boys. The desserts are homemade, and why not wash it down with a hurricane? And it's not like the hurricanes you get at Patty O'Brien's, which are loaded up with sugar. It's really hard to pass out when you have a couple of those, when you have that much sugar in you. At least these hurricanes have real juice in them. That's the difference. That's why it's so much better to go to Nola Jane. Let it be your pre- and post-game party spot when you go to Ball Arena, because it's right around the corner. Time now for What's Trending.
What's Trending is presented by Nola Jane in the heart of Lodo. No one does Cajun cuisine better than Nola Jane. Go see why their award-winning menu is the best in town.
Okay, let's start with a couple of things, and let's carry over from what we just talked about. I'm going to ask you a couple of quick questions. Just give me a quick yes or no, whatever answer, and then let's dive into it, okay? For starters, Portland never would have made that trade with the Nuggets because they're in division. Would you agree with that?
Yes.
Okay. Number 2, who is a more reliable player night in, night out? Drew Holiday at 35 and a contract that's $32 million a year, or Michael Porter Jr.?
Michael Porter Jr., barely.
No, he's not. Drew Holiday is still a terrific defensive player. He doesn't give you big offensive numbers. He's 35 years old. He's affordable. He has some years left on his deal. But who's going to trade for Michael Porter Jr.'s contract?
That's when I saw that deal. I was like, you can't trade. I think that he had almost 100. What do you have? 100 million left? Not 100, but something like that. And MPJ's got right at 79. I mean, Holiday's best days are behind him, and he's a little one-dimensional at this point. But to your point about reliability, you know what you're going to get from him. That's the biggest criticism of MPJ. His ceiling's higher, certainly at his age. You just don't know what you're going to get, not only night to night, quarter to quarter from MPJ.
So when I hear people say all the time, I always fire back with the same question. Oh, you want to trade this guy, huh? Okay. What do you think you're realistically getting back in return? Okay. So Can you really trade Jamal Murray on his contract right now? Hell no.
I mean, it kicks in his max. I would say no.
No.
I mean, you might find let's say Toronto. I mean, I'm saying there might be one team because of the Canadian connection, Toronto, that say we want to bring him home. But generally speaking, no. Masai
Ujiri would not bring Jamal Murray back at a contract that is getting ready to start, knowing his injury history and, for lack of a better phrase, his questionable work ethic when it comes to coming into camp in shape. Jamal Murray is not tradable. No one's jumping to go get him. No one's certainly jumping to get Michael Porter Jr. So we talk, well, look what Boston got. Boston had better pieces, has better pieces. Drew Holiday is a nice piece to have. I think he's a better piece to have for a team that's contending than Portland, but that's neither here nor there. So who else are you going to trade? Who else are you going to make a creative deal with? What do you got?
Well, again, the most valuable player you have to trade is Aaron Gordon, but he's become almost like you say, he's almost number 2 in the pecking order now, and he became a folk hero in the playoffs. that deal has to be a home run because of what he does defensively. My concern, the reason I would consider it, and I get so much criticism for this, is because he's starting to age. The calf injuries, the ham, like the ankle, all this is the signal of a guy who's lived above the rim his entire life. He's starting to get a little older, but he's the one guy that has value because of his contract, his versatility, how he's viewed in the industry. He's a great teammate. He fits in anywhere. That's the problem. Christian Brown, again, another guy they see as a core guy, but every guy you can't be in love with. That goes back to my problem. We can't trade him. We love the guy. We can't trade him. We love that guy. Well, then you're going to love getting knocked out in the second round again, I guess. Like, you can't keep doing this. At some point, you have to make a decision to move on from somebody. That's, for me, the easy part, not for them. The hard part is getting a good trade. And they're not even getting to that point of it, though. That's the fear of it. They are so convinced they know what we have in this guy. We don't want to risk that in a trade because trades are risky. Most trades don't work, and usually the team that gets the best player wins the trade.
The way you trade Aaron Gordon, which I wouldn't recommend, because who else is really playing defense in the starting five?
Yeah,
Christian
that's the
Brown
problem.
a little bit. Okay.
Brown plays, but he gets worn down, and they
Correct.
need Jokic to play better defensively next year to help Brown up to near the top of the key. Jokic has got to commit to being more of a functional defensive player at the top of the key next year if they want to win a championship. If he just wants to keep doing what he's doing, I understand it. He would be in line with most NBA stars, frankly, but they need him to be more functional defensively at the top of the key.
It's hard to be that functional defensively at his size and his weight when the entire offense runs through him.
Again, this is the issue. That's
There's
why
only so much energy that you can have.
That's the criticism of his defense is fair in that if you just look at the metrics and the eyeball test, he was not very good last year. But when people say that, I'm like, well, what is the trade-off? Because he is your offense. He is your point guard, and he's your center. So that's why the supporting cast, that's why I'm much more critical of Murray. And the supporting cast, like at some point, guys, you got to help this guy. He is a top, either the best or top 3 player every year. It's on the rest of you. We can't keep saying, give us more, Nicola, give us more. I don't think he has any more to give. Maybe a little more defensively, especially in the postseason. But what else can he give you, Eric?
I want to take something back to the Conley tree, if that's what you want to call it. Something that Tenzer and Wallace both come from. Prior moves made by Conley, mostly Booth, though, by Conley and Booth, have sent out first-round picks in 2025, 2027, 2029, second-round picks this year, next year, the year after, the year after, the year after, the year after, and the year after. They don't have one second-round pick from this year through 2031. Now, there is a rule, fortunately, maybe you're protecting the Nuggets against themselves. They cannot trade their first rounders next year, 2028 and 2030. My thing is, when you have a mentor who shows you how it's done, you're going to have your own mind and you should have your own ideas, but you learned at the foot of somebody who does something and they've had success at it.
Right.
You have the 2 Conley guys under his tree. And then you have Booth, who was under the Conley tree, who literally gave away draft picks like sticks of gum, like they just didn't mean anything. My concern is, are these guys, if they have the ability to trade draft picks, now we're looking into 2032. I don't know if I'm going to be I think I'm collecting Social Security. Oh, wait, I'm not. I have to be 67. Whole different conversation. I thought I might be collecting Social Security at that time, but not to get too political. They just moved the age, and now I can't for all the money that I put in. I just got on my political soapbox there. Didn't we put a lot of money into Social Security? We started working at 15. When are we going to get that money back, Troy?
I'm hoping there's some there when I need it.
I don't know if there's going to be, but the point is, it's good to learn under guys who are really good. But when you're giving away all of these draft picks and now you have nothing to deal with and you're up against the cap, I hope they don't repeat the same mistakes that Conley and Booth made. And Booth was egregious in what he did.
Well, the Jackson trade was criminal. The signing of Dario, the lack of movement at the trade deadline. I mean, that's when it all happened. I said Calvin Booth deserved this. Calvin Booth had it coming. Michael Malone deserved better. Mainly, he deserved a press conference for being the winningest coach in franchise history. To be able to go out with a little bit more respect and dignity. Whatever, he's gone. I understood the reasons, and it played out more clearly as they got into the playoffs. But one thing that I think they need to learn from all this, you can't have three guys on max contracts and one of them be incredibly hurt, incredibly rich. Because that is in so many ways, and it's not fair to MPJ. He is a bit of a warrior in the way stuff he plays through. You know more about it than I do. He is a tough guy. I respect that. Again, the context of pro sports almost always relates to value as it relates to the contract. If you just watched MPJ, you're like, he's a solid player. If he was making mid-level money, you'd love him.
Troy, let me cut you off. It was like Conley knew and he didn't know. It's as if Conley knew he was going to take the job as team president with the Timberwolves and said, you know what? I'm going to help myself before I leave. Hey, Michael, here's a new contract.
Exactly. And it made no sense. He'd been hurt, really hurt, leading up to that deal.
Listen, they had no business even negotiating, more or less offering. It's because they like him so much.
Right.
Tim fell in love with his players. That's what I'm worried a little bit about with Wallace, hearing his history, that he's very likable, and that's all good. But you don't want to become friends with these guys. And that's the problem when you become too close to guys.
In a salary cap sport, that's the issue. If this is baseball, you give them whatever the hell you want. Money, monopoly money. In this sport, Eric, it just creates this iceberg. You're landlocked with Murray, Jokic, and MPJ, and now you got to play at some point Christian Brown, maybe even this offseason.
Hold on. I think if you needed to, you could trade MPJ after the season. He has 1 year left on his deal.
I know.
Then he becomes attractive if that's something that you wanted to do. They need to find out if some of these young guys can play. Think about this for a second. We still don't know because Malone wouldn't play these guys. Adelman will, but it all ties into Jamal Murray coming into shape. I mean, I like everything that Adelman said. I don't have a problem with the setup that they have. They don't have a title of GM. Let's face it, the GM is Josh Kroenke. He's going to be far more involved. I trust his direction because he has proven to me you can trust his direction. If we're talking about the Rockies, that's something completely different. But there is a similarity if you truly do believe something that you said early on, which is Josh falls in love with his players. Dick Monfort treats every player like that player is his son. That's why he can never get rid of any of them. And that's the danger of becoming too close.
Well, again, to Josh's credit, the players he falls in love with are usually pretty good.
Yes.
The Rockies fall in love with guys who are not good / terrible.
Right.
And then they want to trade him for, I want your number 2 starter for my 5th outfielder. And the industry's like, no, we're good. And so, again, I love the fact Josh cares and he's passionate. When you hear him talk at press conferences, he loves basketball. The guy loves hoops. All the other stuff he's involved in, the soccer, all the other, the tentacles of the KSE enterprise, he loves basketball. And that comes across. But you have to be able to, when it comes down to it, make tough decisions. And will they try to make one with Michael Porter Jr.? I think they're going to continue to put their, dip their toes in the water there. It's just who's going to take him because of the physical and the injury issue. Everyone I talk to says, as you just mentioned, he's tradable next year with an expiring contract. This year it would be very difficult to move him. And so that's why it feels like another year where they're basically saying, we're going to do our best, but really it's 2026 where we're going to make a run for it. But are we sure? See, this is my thing about sports. Are we sure Nikola Jokic is still going to be the greatest player in the world in 2026? Like, at some point, you got to be fair to Jokic. Like, you can't just assume that. I used to cover the Rockies, and it was like, when Cargo and Tulo play, our winning percentage is .553. And I'd be like, yeah, and they play like 81 games together every year. Right. That is not a strategy. And so this idea that Jokic is just going to be Kareem and be a top player when he's 37, okay, I just think that's a faulty strategy. Me personally, I just think you cannot.
Troy, they're pinned into the strategy and the bed that they've already made.
But then you still have to try, Eric. You got to go.
I didn't say.
You got to get a Mason Plumlee. You got to buy out Dario. Do not bring Westbrook back. He will trample all over Adelman. You have to do some tangible things other than throw your arms in the air and say, "Oh, the old CBA."
Okay, let's look at the numbers. You could buy out Saric in full if you choose to. That's what I would recommend that the Kroenkes do. And now you are $16.5 million under the second apron. You could do a little bit of work with that, if you want to. They have 3 roster spots that are open. They're not bringing back Westbrook and Saric. You just hope that he walks out the door and gets a better deal in somewhere in Europe.
He won't.
I don't think he will either. But then you buy him out. This is the problem that they have.
But you get rid of DeAndre Jordan. You get rid of
Well, they're going to. His contract's
up. Get rid of Westbrook. You have to move on from all of them.
Fine. Well, DeAndre Jordan's contract is up. Yeah, that's why they have a roster spot.
He was great. Everything about DeAndre is great. You got to move on. It's time.
Right. So you need to see if some of these young guys can play not only meaningful minutes, but maybe can they one day, dare I say, be a starter. I'm not so sure. Okay. You have MPJ's contract. People say all the time, trade MPJ. Don't you think all the other GMs around the league see what you see? It's as if MPJ is playing in a vacuum here in Denver. Nobody gets to see him except for us. We're like, I bet we can pull one over on the Pelicans because they probably have never seen the guy play.
They don't have cable. They don't have Comcast. They had Comcast there and never saw him play until this year.
True. And then you have the same thing with Jamal Murray. Everybody knows that his reputation of not coming into camp in shape with all that talent's never been an all-star. Yeah, this year he had his best numbers in terms of scoring, but he needs to be firmly entrenched in that number 2, no doubt about it, role. He just isn't. So you have 2 contracts, in my opinion, that are untradeable. I don't think you trade Gordon because you're losing so much defense, and he's a great glue guy. I mean, he's the heart and soul of that franchise. I'm sorry. You don't trade him away. Christian Brown, you might have to. He's going to ask for about $30 million a year, and somebody will give it to him. So then what do you do about your bench? They're limited because of the CBA crushed them.
Yeah.
Can they make moves? Yes. But can they make a Drew Holiday move? No, I don't think so. I don't think they can.
You could get a Tyus Jones from Phoenix to come in here and shoot threes and be a better backup point guard.
They should have brought him in last year.
You could get Bruce Brown back. He wants to come back.
Well, but wait, hold on. He wants to come back for $5.7 million? If he does, great.
I mean, I think he might because he's made enough money now. I'm not saying I would. Like, it's his money. It's easy for me to say.
At the end of the day,
Denver. He loves Denver. He would take a discount. Would it be that steep? It might be that steep. His value is basically fallen off a cliff since he left here. So he might say, I'll rather come here and have fun and be a folk hero.
People think that the Nuggets can go out and spend well into the second apron. They can't.
They can't.
First apron's punitive too. Not like the second apron. Point is, they have a maximum mid-level exception of 5.7. Who's coming in for that?
Yeah.
They are in the throes of getting killed by the new CBA. And in 3 years, the same thing will happen to Oklahoma City. I don't care how many draft picks they have. They're going to have big contracts coming up. They're only going to be able to pay X number of guys. Rockets, they're in their window as well. Good for them. It's about a 3-4 year window, and Oklahoma City has gotten off to a great start. The Nuggets, unfortunately, got punished.
Well, the irony, real quick, is we would agree with all of what you're saying, as this would be a transitional franchise if it weren't for the presence of Jokic. Yeah. That's what frames every conversation. If Jokic was just a good player, we would be like, this makes total sense. They're in transition. Wait till 2027. But we're sitting here. We can literally, it's like an episode of the show 60 Minutes where the clock is ticking behind us with Jokic in his prime. That's what frames every conversation. If he was Mobley from Cleveland, man, he's a great young center, but we got time. It just feels like with Jokic, the clock is ticking. And then as Jamal gets older and Gordon gets older, it's just like, man, is this really going to be it? The Nuggets were a one-off. And listen, I'm a native. I never thought I would see it. So I appreciate what they did and won a championship. It would just it'd be a little bit of a downer if that's as high as it ever gets, is that moment 2 years ago.
Murray's the key.
Yeah.
He has to play up to his highest potential to get Jokic another ring, to get himself another ring. I mean, I'll ask you, and then we got to run. Clearly, they're going to retire Jokic's number, and I do believe they should be retiring Carmelo Anthony's number as well. There need to be 2 15s up there. That could be a discussion for another day. Would you retire Jamal Murray's number?
He's got a case because of the championship. I think he needs to finish, though. He is in the Hall of Very Good right now when it comes to Nuggets. And to me, if he wants
he's had 2 great playoff runs.
It just depends on how you view the championship. It just depends on how you view the championship. From a statistical standpoint, no, he's not worthy of a retired jersey. From the championship, how do you weight that in your logarithm? That's it. I'll
say this, and I could be wrong, and I'm sure there's an outlier out there. I'm guessing there's at least one team in basketball that has retired a number where the guy has never been an all-star, but I doubt it. Right?
Yeah.
Can you imagine? You got to be desperate. Sorry. You got to be desperate to be retiring numbers if you're retiring a number of a guy who has never even been an all-star.
Right.
So anyway, that's going to do it for us. Troy, anything big planned today? Any big column you're working on?
I'm going to be covering the U.S. Senior Open and the U.S. Women's National Team this week. So I'm looking forward to something a little off the beaten path. I'll be heading down to the Broadmoor as I get off the air. Right, the
U.S. Women's National Soccer Team.
Yeah, I'll be doing that on Wednesday and Thursday. I'll be doing golf today and Saturday.
Well, hopefully you get a lot of Colorado flair with all the Real Colorado gals who have played, because there are 3 of them, and they're all unbelievably good. Yep. I mean, that team is fueled by Real Colorado, which is a club team here in Colorado. You knew that, I'm sure, right?
Yes. Of course.
Now I feel like such a jerk. Anyway, have a great day. See you tomorrow, Troy.
You got it. See ya.
Late.